Hey, what's up guys? In today's video, we're getting back to the college application process, focusing on letters of recommendation. I'll start by describing what exactly is a letter of recommendation in the college application process, and then the 3 things you need to master to have an Ivy League level letter of recommendation. Timestamps are in the description. Let's get into the video. Alright, so actually, before we get started with the video, I have some very good news. I've actually started my own college application business with a good friend of mine going to Princeton. We're called The Ivy Gateway. I know, very good name. But if you want advice or consultation about your own application, go to the website in the description below, book a free 15-minute meeting with us, and we can have a good chat. Alright, with that out of the way, let's get into the video. What exactly is a letter of recommendation? Well, a letter of recommendation is a document written by your teacher, guidance counselor, coach, or mentor that attests to your personal positive qualities as a student, athlete, leader, or person as a whole. It is one of the only times in your entire application process that the admissions officer gets an opinion on you from an outside perspective. This makes the letter of recommendation a very powerful part of your application for you to master. Alright, so tip number 1 is relatively easy to master. It's simply picking the right recommenders. Almost all colleges in the United States will require 2 teacher recommendations and 1 guidance counselor recommendation. The policy for teacher recommendations is usually 1 science teacher recommendation and 1 non-science teacher recommendation, but there are many programs and colleges in the United States that will require 1 math teacher recommendation, especially engineering programs, so be careful of that. That'll be something you need to research as you build your college list. So within these policy parameters, you'll want to pick the specific teachers that you want to write you a recommendation. It's my advice that you pick the teachers that you've participated the most in their classes and shown the most growth in their classes to have you write a recommendation. I'll get into why later on. That's a perfect segue into tip number 2, how to ask for a letter of recommendation. Now, it's my personal philosophy that the best way to get a recommendation from a potential recommender is to make it as easy as possible for them to write that recommendation for you. Now, a lot of schools seem to agree with my philosophy because they've implemented this policy of writing brag sheets, which are essentially summaries of your academic and your extracurricular achievements within the school and why you want that teacher to write you a recommendation. Now, I think that's a very good place to start off, but a level up from a brag sheet is an academic resume, which is a very professional document, 1 page or 2 pages, that lists out your coursework, your standardized test scores, your awards list, and your top 4 or 5 extracurricular activities and a detailed description of each of them. This gives your potential recommender the idea that you are very serious about this college application process, and that may convince them even more to write that recommendation for you. Now, if you want to secure that letter of recommendation, you may want to consider doing this one thing. Type up an email to your potential recommender of all of the positive interactions you've had in their class. For your science class, maybe every single time your teacher assigned a lab and lab group, you took the lead of your lab group and followed all the instructions and did those labs perfectly. Or for your government class, maybe you always took the lead for the debate that your government teacher would assign. Reminding your teacher of these positive interactions that you've had in their class does 2 things for your letter of recommendation. First of all, it gives your potential recommender ideas to put in your letter of recommendation, which further convinces them to do that letter of recommendation for you. The second thing that it does is that it adds a level of authenticity to your letter of recommendation and application as a whole. Because if your teacher includes all of these eyewitness details of your character, your growth, your leadership in their class, it shows the admissions officer that this student is a very authentic and a very passionate person if their teacher can include all of these specific details of what they've done in their class. It's a win-win for your application, so you should really consider doing it. So up until this moment in the video, we've only talked about 2 types of recommendation, the counselor letter of recommendation and the teacher letter of recommendation. My third tip to boost your application is to get a third type of recommendation. I like to call this the non-academic letter of recommendation because it comes from a person outside of school. This can be your coach, your mentor, your boss, your volunteer manager, or anyone who can attest to your skills outside of school. Just don't let it be a family member or a parent because there's obviously a conflict of interest there. In my own application, I had my lab mentor who oversaw the research that I did the summer before my senior year write my third letter of recommendation. I think that the non-academic letter of recommendation adds a depth to your application, unlike the other two letters of recommendation, because it shows who you are and what you like to do outside of school from someone else's perspective. This enables the admissions officer to see your personality in a broad range of scenarios, from academic to non-academic. So I think it's an overall green flag to have in your application. Alright, so this is my 3 tips on how to get Ivy League level letters of recommendation. Now, I know it's July going into August, it's a bit late, but if you haven't asked for letters of recommendation, do so immediately when you start school. As soon as you can get in contact with your recommenders, please ask them for a letter of recommendation as soon as possible. For those who aren't seniors or juniors yet, ideally you should ask for your letters of recommendation the spring of your junior year. For mentors, if you're doing something over the summer, maybe towards the end of the program, you can ask that person for a letter of recommendation. But yeah, ideally you should have all of your letters of recommendation confirmed by the end of your junior year. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Next I'll do a video on interviews in this playlist for college application process advice. Thank you so much for the support I've seen on the channel so far. I really love all the nice comments that you guys keep on leaving, even on my previous uploads. I really love that. So make sure to watch out for new college content. I already talked about the website. Check that out in the description below. So Endcards. Over here is going to be a playlist of the college application process. Right here is where you can subscribe. And right here is going to be a video just for you. Alright, have a good day. Goodbye.